So earlier when we were talking telephonically, you wanted to kill me because you thought I couldn't pronounce Bakwena Bamuhopa. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to pronounce your surname well. Pam, I'm going to call you Ma. Pam Segakweng.
No, you say Secha. In Setswana, we say Segakweng.
But it's a K. It's S-E-G-A.
No, it's an Segakweng. It's got a meaning. Segakweng means do not forget.
Oh, okay. I shall not forget. Segakweng.
Yeah.
Could you kind of share with me briefly about the Bakwena Bamogopa Community Foundation? What do you guys do?
Okay, so Bakwena Bamogopa Community Development Foundation, and we can call it CDF. We in 2022, we put together, we wanted to see why there's no development in a rural community of Bakwena Bamogopa. Right? So Bakwena Bamogopa, we are under a paramount chief, Tebogo Mamogale. If you Google that, you'll find that we actually are supposed to be one of those prime tribe in the Northwest. It's us, and then it's Bafokeng. Bafokeng actually in Pokeng are Bakwena. So everybody else is within Bakwena. So, but we are called Bakwena Bamogo, but that's how we distinguish ourselves. So our paramount chief is called Tebogo Mamogale. Very young man, I think he was born in the 80s or something like that. And he resides over about 17 villages. Some, I think about five are within the Rustenburg local municipality. Some are within the Madibeng, which is Bretts, and one out in Bastrai, which is called Mohopa in Venterezo. The Bastrai is more spoken about because it was the last tribe or last village that was actually removed forcefully by the apartheid South Africa in the, I think, late 80s. Towards before we gained our democracy. So you'll see when you Google those, you'll find the likes of Bishop talking about them. You'll find the Julukas. There's so much information about them. They're part of us. We are about 17 villages of Bakwena Bamogopa, and the king, and you can call him, the chief, but he's our king. He resides over all of those 17 villages. Bakwena Bamogopa is very vast. It's vast. And unfortunately, or fortunately enough, this nation is rich with minerals, quarries, mines. We have the Glencos of this world in our midst. And then you've got the likes of Vametco and big companies and big mining entities. There is sand mines, there's quarries, etc., etc. However, rural communities, I don't think they've actually made a cut in terms of what makes South Africa. Every time you speak about other people, we're not necessarily spoken about unless we go on strike. And that's a typical mentality in South Africa. And I think it's time that rural communities come to the centerfold, because what we make, like, for example, in the whole world, we are the third largest vanadium producing place in the world, not in South Africa. Therefore, in South Africa, my village, Bethany, is the first South Africa. We produce the largest vanadium in South Africa. Wow. So we're the third. There's China, there's Russia, then there's South Africa. In South Africa, there's us, Glencoe.
And how much investment goes into that from the Bakwenas? And
there's a lot that so that you can say about Bakwena, but not much is being said about us. The only recent information that people have heard about us is the strike that took about 6 weeks in 2024. Earlier on in March, the whole world was talking about us, but it was because of Glencoe, because people don't realize that I can walk to Glencoe from my mother's house in Bethany, literally.
Wow. So your organization, Bakwena Bamogopa CDF, is mainly focusing on rural settings, as I gather what you just gave me now.
Yeah. So our mission is to be a channel for government and any other entities to try and facilitate socio-economic development of the community, because I mean, I grew up there. It looks the same as when I grew up, literally. I mean, water is a problem. The environment is problematic. There's no rivers. Rivers have dried up. There's no economic development. Our youth are now getting into drugs. There's so many social issues, social degradation, and it's a problem. But I think when you look at the social issues, they stem from the lack of economic opportunities. You know, most of us had to leave the village after we graduated, go to Cape Town, go to Durban, go to Johannesburg, go to Pretoria. We come back, and for us as CDF, we decided, why is it still like this? We beg. We need to give back as professionals. So our CDF entity, the foundation, we have a group of engineers. We've got myself as a strategist and also coming from advertising. And look, I mean, after chemistry and after working in the lab, I worked in marketing. I'm a strategist. I did my MBA. So all of us within the CDF, nobody has anything lesser than a junior degree. And all of us have got an experience within either the energy sector, the mining sector, engineers. We even have chartered accountants. The only other expertise that we don't have amongst us as directors is legal and legal experience. But we source different legal experiences from here and there. But we decided as children from Bakwena ba Mokgopa, listen, we've got to do something. If our children and grandchildren are going to look back and say, what did they do? What did these ones do because they're educated? We need to be able to have put our mark on the table to say, we tried. This is what we did. Because it was the same. Let me tell you, when I left that village, I came back. The first thing that I had to do for my mom in the rural community was to dig up a borehole for water. The second thing was at the time it was Uputatswana, we used to buy poles for electricity from the main road to my mother's house. That's like 5 kilometers away. So you pay for that and then your neighbors pay you back. So why should my neighbor look different from me? I mean, that's a bit selfish, you know what I mean? So the disparities in class in the rural communities is a real issue. It's there, but the social degradation is even more problematic. But we saw that the social issues emanate from lack of economic opportunities in the community. And yet, we have so many assets. We've got quarries, we've got mines, but there's no development. And I don't think the government is looking enough at the rural development. Look, I mean, they know about it. If you look at the National Development Plan, which is Vision 2030 of the government, the section, I think chapter 13, it talks about integrated and inclusive rural economy. What does that mean? There's a lot of good write-up, but implementation lacks. So we're there. We able to say to our partners and to government, we are here. Hello, we'll implement on your behalf. Because I think they've got good policies. The one thing about South Africa, policies we've got. Implementation lacks, but the best policy. This is why the world knows us for a good constitution. It is because we're good in writing. We're not good in things. We implement halfways, or maybe we don't get enough people to assist us in the implementation. Look, there's always challenges everywhere. I'm not saying South Africa is the worst of any other countries, but I think we've got expertise to do that, and CDF is there. We've got good expertise to do this and implement on behalf of government to see that rural development happens as an effect.
So I can attest to that, especially in the space that I am. My focus is mainly on agricultural development, but looking into rural spaces. But that's a conversation that you and I are going to have online. You just reminded me something. Do you only focus on the Northwest province? I understand that you guys are mainly concentrated around Gauteng and Northwest, and the Bakwenas in particular are mainly in Northwest. Are you focusing mainly on those spaces, the rural spaces in the Northwest?
I think at the moment, because we are 2 years in the making, next year we're 3 years, we needed to quickly gather what's happening where we live. You know, we have a saying in Setswana that says, you need to start at home.
Of course.
right?
Charity
So
begins
we
at home.
want to have a cohort of activists within our communities so that when you go out of our communities and go to the rest of the Northwest, we have already put the ground at home, right?
Okay.
So we try, because at home, there are assets that are there. We need to sweat these assets if there's anything like that. Or we need to look at the return on investment and make sure that it works for Bakwena Bamukho. It's not working at the moment. There's so many assets, they're not working for Bakwena Bamukho. But there's mines, there's quarries, they're not really. And we have land. There's no land in an urban community. But in our communities, rural communities, we've got so much land we can go into agriculture. I mean, we're talking right now between the two of us, but on the 4th of March, 2025, well, annually, the United Nations, through UNESCO, they promulgated the 4th of March as the World Engineering Day. So the World Engineering Day is really about celebrating the contributions of engineering in society for sustainable development. Now, our economy in our region should be a twofold. It should be mining and agriculture. But there's so much over-reliance on mining that it precludes people from thinking outside of the box and say, I bet there must be a connection between mining and agriculture. And for us, that connection is engineering, right? And technology and innovation. So every year we try and celebrate it. This year we did it online because we did not get enough funding to do it in a broad way so that people can publicly see it. But it's captured in our Facebook page, it's captured in our website. So 2025, we are now talking at high levels with institutions of higher learning and private institutions. We want the focus to be on this thing in a rural community. And the thing is, Dr. Q, in an urbanized community, you can come up with an event, people will come. What motivates the government and what motivates private institutions to go to the rural community? We've got to start somewhere, and it's us. It's how we marketing this thing. So come the 4th of March 2025, this is going to be big. I've been working hard at this thing. That's how you found me, through the partner that you found me with, because we actually engaging him to come on board. We've been going to these events and he said, it's time that we put a spotlight on rural development. I know that the government knows what they need to do, but I don't think they've got a plan of implementation. They've got a policy, correct. Let's give them that. But when it comes to implementation, I think it's lacking somewhere. And I think we as professionals, we can assist in that line. So we're going to do that exactly because we've got expertise from vast areas.
I'm going to hold you there. I don't think we can safely say that the policies are correct. We can't give them a thumbs up if they are not implemented, because one way of testing is to see that they are really effective when they are put into action. But that's not where we are. In fact, I think one critical question that I need to ask you is, how does the work that you do link to gender-based violence, which is what we will be talking about today?
Thank you for that question. So our organization, we've always said socioeconomic issues are very critical to us. So to deal with social issues, we've got to deal with economic issues first, right? But we're cognizant of where we come from, and we're also cognizant of the social issues like gender-based violence. Like, I think for us as an entity, we're watching this space, and everything we see, and every time we see in the news issues about rape victims, gender-based violence, especially rape of young kids, it reminds of our own community where we come from. I'm not sure if you know that in November, there's a case, it's actually ongoing. The case is sub judice at the moment, but I think the culprit was remanded, is in custody, because he's 36-year-old, he's raped a 13-year-old young girl from our village, and the case is in Brest Magistrate Court. So it talks directly to us because we're looking at these things and we're thinking, how do we make sure that these things are exposed? We come from a background of Botswana people and African people that like hiding things, and we hustle and bustle around issues. And I know for sure a lot of people from my community can stand up and tell you if you call them. Did we know that some of our elders or authorities did have issues with rape? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. We've known this for many, many years, but we hide it. We rationalize it around issues of authority, respect. You've got to have respect for one tate, meaning men. We can solve it from a family perspective. And I think for me, I'm proud of my community when they went to the Brest magistrate community, a magistrate court. As a community, they literally used their own money to go and listen to the case. And it was the biggest flags to get women and men going there and saying, no, he must be in custody, he must be remanded. This man is a man outside of our country. He's been working for this family, but he's 36-year-old. He saw the kid growing up, and he raped the kid inside of the yard where he's working as a gardener. So we do know that these things have been happening, even from people and adults that we know, that we grew up with. We know this, but nobody's ever took a stand to say, no, this is actually one of the cases, it's the second case that has come out in the media. A couple of years ago, there's a man that raped a young boy. So rape is not necessarily against young girls. Young boys were raped, 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds by another man. And he was in his 30s as well. So for me, I can only say, Dr. Q, I'm proud of my community for waking up. There are also cultural innuendos that are like, yeah, we need to be very careful what we say. And this is a person with a very high position in the community. We need to respect the person. For me, we're not doing enough, and the government is not supportive of these programs. And we are in the corner of the country where nobody looks at these things. Go and look into research. There's been more rape cases in this community, but they're not necessarily spoken about. They look very isolated from the rest of South Africa. And that is because nobody takes time to join the dots. There's a social degradation in these communities, and it is because the government and the cases are not dealt with properly. I don't even know where to put the blame. I want to put the blame on us as a community, say, come on. I mean, I'm 59 this year, but I've known this for many, many years. And the thing is, we kind of know it's happening, but it's like, whoopsie, if nobody's saying nothing about it, we're scared of Kliniso's family, we're scared of Segakweng's family, we're scared of Kliniso's family, because Kliniso's family, they've got a particular position in the community. So those things need to be broken down. I look at what's happening in Johannesburg. I have a house in Johannesburg, and sometimes I cringe, and I wish some of these activists would go to deep in the rural communities. I know there's a problem in Johannesburg and in suburbs, but guys, rural communities are even worse because it's a taboo to talk about it. But I have to say, I take my hat off for Bakwena because in their multitudes, nobody paid for them. They got taxis, they went to the magistrate court, it was a big crowd, they said, never again, this is enough, we're tired. So it does tell you that my community are very smart and they're realizing that this is actually getting worse. So I'm proud of them for that. I am saying more needs to be done in those communities. And I mean it sincerely. If you, yourself, if you're going to go to Betani and ask people, they'll tell you even names. People are not even scared to tell you names of people in high positions that have done the rapes. It's common. And it's happened. I was at primary school where girls were fondled. I know this personally. Girls were fondled. Girls were patted on their bums. I mean, I come from a family background where I was raised by my grandmother. She was the cheekiest grandmother ever. You could not touch any of her grandchildren. So me and my cousins and my sisters, teachers knew that you can't touch these ones. I don't know. I'm saying teachers that were out of order, not all teachers. Look, I'm generalizing. There were teachers that were generally sympathetic, but people are very blasé about what has happened. And we tend to forget and move on. Those people still have high positions in the communities. They know these things. I'm not sure what needs to be done. I know that in my organization, we are beginning to talk about these things openly on Facebook and to say, People need to come forward. We need to talk about this. It's not okay. It's just not okay. The social degradation in rural communities, I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe it's even worse than in urbanized communities, because it's like a misnomer. You don't just talk about it unless you don't have a surname. If you're a Kuniso in my community, I will tell you that you rape. If you're going to be a Segakweng, you gotta be careful.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. You speak like you just got injected to just do the talking, which is beautiful. But you've said a number of things, and you've touched on a number of questions that I actually want to touch on. Uh, first of which, first things first, I appreciate the fact that you talk about our own, um what would be the appropriate English term for me to use here? Yeah, our own shortfalls as the Black community, as the Black society.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, it's so easy for us to blame things on the apartheid regime, and we would say these are the remnants of apartheid, but we forget to critique ourselves. You talk
yeah,
about, you mention culture, you mention authorities within these spaces and how they actually suppress voices, not your direct words, but it happens in rural spaces. So the question that I wanted to ask, and I want us to focus on this, is how do cultural and demographic factors contribute to the prevalence of gender-based violence in rural areas? Maybe before you respond, earlier you and I offline we spoke about what is currently trending. The young man that murdered himself after killing his girlfriend. I'm not sure whether it was a girlfriend or a wife, but you know the story. He then decided to go and hang himself. And I saw shortly after our conversation that that actually happened in a rural setting. He was by the river when he murdered himself. So I want to know how do cultural and demographic factors actually contribute to the prevalence of GBV in rural spaces?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, Dr. Q. I'm so glad you asked that question. And I think I've often said, if there's one target market that needs to be I don't know whether reintegrated is the right word, but it's like almost kind of reawakening our men, African men in rural communities.
Mm.
We come from a very paternalistic background. Tribal communities are very paternalistic. There's a lot of men that wouldn't take kindly of me being the chairperson of an NGO of this kind, simply because the way they socialize is that you're a man, and then there's a woman. There's God, there's a man, and there's a woman. And I don't subscribe to that nonsense. And I'm sorry I'm going to say nonsense, because I'm saying then it means our constitution since 1994 was a badly written constitution, if that is the case, or the implementation thereof is bad. Because at this point in time, our African men in a tribal setting, in rural communities, they need more of a re-education. Let me tell you something. It often surprises me that even the most educated men from a rural community still say there's the woman's space and there's the men's space. I don't disagree that abobaba, there's a woman and there's a man. But when it comes to leadership roles, we've got to accept that there are women leaders in this world. So let's talk about specifically what you're talking about and how I'm seeing it from the perspective of lack of acknowledging women in entering certain spaces in rural community. In my community is it's also pretty paternalistic. You tend to figure it out once you go to rural community meetings, where there'll be comments like, no, meaning, but when they get into trouble, they call you. How do we do this? So there's a double standards of Abu Baba. And I think men need to be re-educated in the sense that men need to be comfortable in their own skin that I'm a man. I don't need any other labels to aspire to. I'm born a man. I'm born with what I am. I don't necessarily need to be a leader simply because of my gender. I am Qiniso, and I'm okay with being Qiniso. If Pam can be a leader, let her be. But the society in rural communities pressurizes men to see them as being leaders. So you feel castrated if you're not going to be on top. And I think it transpires into men putting the society and men themselves putting pressure on themselves, in the sense that that young man that killed himself saw himself as being devalued once the girlfriend saw him, a bit useless, that she can go and find somebody else or there's money elsewhere. So the man's value is attached to what he brings on the table as a man, and value being materialistic. No, Dr. Qiniso, you enough as Qiniso yourself. There's value in being Qiniso. You get what I'm saying? Maybe it's because personally, I'm not a materialistic person. So I don't get it when a man subjects himself to saying, yes, about Fazi, they like money. Nonsensical. That's Fazi like me, having our own money. You haven't moved around enough in different circles to realize that your circle is this much. And maybe it's because you want to experience your manhood as a provider. And we've taken the old traditional methodology of saying men are providers to the extreme. So when you are not able to provide, you yourself start by devaluating yourself. You can't. You're still a man. I need you in my life. For the life of me, chop a branch from my neighbor said, I need you. Why can't you see that instead of seeing yourself as, why? Why? You have a road. Find it without money. Without money. Money is not the only thing that we need as a value. I agree, we need money to go and buy water, to buy milk, to buy whatever. But if you show your love for me and your children, you are able to clean up the garden and see that things are organized. I may not see that the nail is not hit properly in the wall. You're going to see, because automatically your eye goes there. My eye goes to your shirt not being well ironed, for example. That's just how we socialize. And please, people must understand me. I'm not saying a woman's role is to iron your shirt, but I'm saying the way we see things is very different. Bring the value on the table. Don't only think of money as you. Why are men attaching themselves to valuing themselves to money? That young man should, honestly, I blame our society for bringing up men that see value in themselves attached to money. No. Our forefathers and our grandparents, my father did not have money, but my mother respected this man regardless. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. What was his value? My father's value was encouraging us as the girl children to go to school, to do whatever. Where my mother could not scold us, he could scold us. That's his value. Find a different value as a man. And I think there's a lot that must be done for young men in this country. I love girl children, but my pain goes to boy kids. And I want the organization to start looking at the boy child, because they need to be affirmed. They need to get their, they need to be asserted. They need to find their value. Value is not buying a cider for a girl in a pub. No, we need our children to know that, their brain makes more sense. Their lifestyle makes more sense. It's not about that boy. It's simple. He killed himself because the girl sought to find money elsewhere. Sorry, no. I love a girl child because I'm a girl, but I think there's a lot more that we should do in this country for a boy child. Honestly, we need to do that. And my nephew is a boy. My sister's child is a boy. And I see that there's a lot that needs to be done by affirming a boy child in this. We need to raise better boys. We need to tell boys that you have value without money. So let's find that value. Let's find that value proposition for a boy child versus money. Let's not talk money, because African people, we come from nothing, but we did something for ourselves. So my pain goes to, look, I'm empathetic to what has happened to the family of the girl, for the girl being killed. I will never condone that at all. I'm mad as hell, But I'm also saying, South Africa, let's wake up. Let's help a boy child. They have devalued themselves, and the society has continued to encourage the devaluation of a boy child. Can we do something? Because if we do that, we may curb the number of girls that get killed. My child is a girl. My sister's got a boy child. I've got a girl child. So you must know the double whammy for me. I look at the boy and I look at my own child biologically that I've given birth to. And I raised the boy child. I raised my sister's son. So, and I see, I mean, he's like in his 20s, my daughter in her 30s. And life is just not okay. And the economy is bad. So a girl child, whoever does not have much happening for them, they clamor, they'll go to a Dr. Q, right? They'll go to a Dr. Q who can make money for themselves. But Dr. Q, you're actually emphasizing the fact that indoda imali, injalo into so, right? No, no, not at all. And we end up with families with boys killing girls. That's not okay.
Sorry, you are reminding me of a conversation I had last Saturday with another friend of mine from Pretoria. And we were talking about this thing, Emma Blessers and young girls. And he was actually saying something similar to what you are saying now. He was saying, the reason why we exist in a society where men are abusive towards women, and in particular, Kuma relationships where you see an older man and a younger girl. It is because they come with a certain level of power and authority. They provide for these girls. They pay for they pay their rent. They pay for their cars, and they give them allowances and so on and so forth. But then you just said it yourself that the economy is not good. What must young women do in this instance?
Look, obviously, I grew up in South Africa, right? And I grew up from nothing, and I come from nothing. But there are boys that came from nothing, my age group. We did not have to sleep with them. They didn't have to show their value by money. They showed their value differently from here. Can we educate? We need to educate, right? I know, Dr. Q, that I'm not in control of my daughter's lifestyle, but I know something about what I inspired or instilled in her. You do not need a man's validation and men's money to get to Woolies to buy yourself a drink, right? You come from something. So it's your background. It's what we need to instill in our own families. But I think NGOs need to work a lot more and closer with African young men. You know what? It's not like I'm saying I don't care about white males. But the fact of the matter is, in South Africa, the large majority, 80% are Black, right? And a lot of social degradation comes from us, and a lot of social issues come from us. We're a Black country. Let's face it, right? So the stereotype will be more about African men. So let's talk specifically about blessers. If you raise a girl child to know her worth without getting the money from a blesser who's my age, who's 59, you've won, right? If you raise your boy child to know his value, for girl children, you've got to teach them to know that you can get it from home, you can do it yourself, that's fine. But a boy child, instill confidence, instill you handsome, you good looking, you doing it. Those are the things that boys need to hear about themselves. Every time I talk to a young boy, you must listen to me. Oh, why? Oh, wow. Do I just love this chocolate figure? You so handsome, my child. So for me, it's my small little ways of saying, you know what? He will realize that there's value in him. There's handsomeness. There's intelligence. Wow, you look good. I like your complexion. We've got to start talking about the chocolate face. You know, you look good. You're a Black kid. This is the face we want. We don't have blemishes. We don't, unless you want to have a chubaba, which is self-instilled. But Black people, they say, Blacks ain't cracking. We get old. Look at my face. Look at you. You're going to get old and looking this handsome. So those are the things we need to tell a Black boy you're handsome, you look good, you're tall, dark, big, whatever it is. So we need to look at the points that a black boy is missing to make him aware that that broad nose, honey, is well placed. So we need to enforce the good features of a black boy and the good things of a black boy so that they grow up knowing that I'm the SHT that needs to be here. You know what I mean? They've got to get it in themselves. You must look at all the celebrities that are confident. Child, they're confident because they know their worth, even if they don't have the money. I mean, the saying that says fake it until you make it, it's a saying that also applies to them. You know what I mean? If you aspire to that as a black child and a black boy, you know that you're hot. We can conquer the world. And our black boys are doing marvelous stuff. So we need mentors of our young black kids to know that you're worth more than this girl that's looking for money from you. No, I'm not saying don't date. Hear me out correctly. But I'm saying be confident that you are not dating because you want to shower money. Then our girls will realize that why must I date a 60-year-old when I have a 30-year-old who's my same age? I have a child that went to UJ, right? And these kind of things we spoke about them and we used to talk about. My child is no perfect, she's not an angel. But for me, opening up the debate and the discussion, so what's going on campus, blah, 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 is more important for us as parents, mother and father. And make sure that you tell your girl child, la, 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 la. These things are happening in the world. Can we just not do them? These are the things I'm going to do for you. And your child needs to be open enough to say to you, I want to go to this concert, blah, blah, blah. And understand from your point of view if you're against it, but discuss it. Open up, because the other thing is being overly strict. It's a problem because your child will be raised by the streets. But right now, Dr. Q, to be honest with you, I love girl children. But for me, 2025 for CDF, we've got to start looking at the boy child. Because in my community, a lot of atrocities are done by men. So we need to find mentors like yourselves, like the likes of both Dr. Rakudu, as mentors for these boys to look up and say, I can be a Dr. Q. I can do a lot for myself. So our focus going forward in 2025 is to start working a lot closely with boys, because for some strange reason, our society has put pressure on a man child, on a boy child, to say a man is a provider. The economy has changed. Can we adapt? Because girls are getting more better jobs because of EE, you know what I mean? Employment equity. So EE will advantage a black girl before a black boy. So a black girl will get a job, but then she is attracted to a Dr. Q who doesn't have a job. So what happens? Are you castrating Dr. Q? And it's not as if Dr. Q does not have qualifications. He does. He will have time. Can you date this man simply because, can you date this man and give him a chance because you kind of like him? But also our society needs to shift, because so our society needs to change and adapt. Girls are given opportunities than boys. So the roles have changed. But I think for me, my heart goes to a young black boy. It goes there. And that's where we need to work.
I cannot stress how much I appreciate this last statement, because when I engage my friends and we are talking about how young men have been deprived of opportunities in this country in the name of we are striking that balance, historical balance on what used to happen back in the day. If you look at the opportunities that were offered to men and opportunities offered to women, I always look at this from a young boy's perspective, and I actually always remember this whenever I'm engaging on GBV issues, as we are talking now. Bursaries are given to schoolgirls, young girls. That priority is given to them. In the context of jobs, they are given priority. But then at the same time, there's these pressures that come. and they come to men's shoulders, young men's shoulders. You need to provide, as you are saying now. You find a wife, you be the provider, and then you ask yourself, in all these things, I am never a priority. Government seems to care less about me as a male child, or as a male generally. But then I'm expected to do so much. It's pressure, and you feel it. You feel it, especially in certain spaces. And then you ask yourself, how are we going to end GBV? If a woman is this glorified thing now, and I am just othered, you know? That's how I always look at it. And I find it to be very problematic. And I appreciate you saying that the focus now with your organization is that you're going to be investing in a boy child. And I think that is very, very much needed. I do want to know, though, still on GBV, whether there are specific forms of GBV that are more prevalent in rural areas as opposed to urban areas, or when compared to urban areas.
Yeah, Dr. Q, I think we forgot something. There's a saying that says "Indoda ayikhali."
Yeah.
I hate the sentence. I just hate it because it says a man must just keep quiet. Awukhali esindoda. In Zulu and in Setswana is the same. Munna khali. And I think Munna must cry. But Munna has this pressure on Munna in Dodakale has made men to even be scared of engaging psychologists to and psychiatrists and to get help. And I think we've got to work harder at that in Dodakale. I think we need to. This needs to be dealt with immediately because we are raising different type of men. We're not raising men where they were getting jobs at some point, going to emsebenzini, emimayinini, kanjalo, leaving women behind. They need to clean at some point. Life has moved on. So we need to fix that. Both Zulus, whatever, African culture, and culture is dynamic. But ours seems to be stuck on Indodaikaj. And I hate this sentence. No, ours is stuck on Indodaikaj. Indoda Maikal, Maikal Indoda, because at this point in time with democracy, Indoda, because with employment equity, right? And I know I've been advantaged of it because I'm a Black female. Now I can talk, right? I'm sure people are going to say, ha, 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 now she can talk. For me, I think sometimes the way we implement programs of government is very Eurocentric. We never go to the Africanism issues, Afrocentric issues, to say, what would it impact if we are implementing it this way? It's very Eurocentric, the way that we've implemented employment equity, because we should have realized that we will be chastising men. It's an unintended consequence that we've kind of led to a point where men feel very castrated and useless. It is the way. Look, there's good in implementing employment equity, but in the context of Africa, we needed to look at whether it's more Eurocentric or Afrocentric. And oftentimes, our policies are implemented in a very Eurocentric mentality, right? Because we needed to take cognizance of our own culture. You know what I'm saying? And said, okay, in 10 years' time after it's implemented, we'll be having a lot more women at this hierarchy or at this level. What have we done with the men that were at those levels? Have we prepared them for that? We never did. As usual, we never do. We never prepare people. We just take policies, and beautiful policies, by the way, and I know you're going to say to me, they're not good if they're not implementable. Well, on paper, they look good, honey. They look good. But in terms of implementation, and I want to see the point where, I don't know, the Department of Traditional Leadership, COCTA, I think, take a stage they need to take a center stage when certain policies are implemented because they affect their own constituency, because COGTA is responsible for traditional leadership, for rural communities, etc., to say, listen, the way we're implementing it, this is how we need to do it, because they have the mandate in terms of making sure that policies from government perspective and from a constitution dwell or are adapted with in a rural setting. So we don't prepare them. And COGTA needs to take the position, because South Africa has got a high percentage of villages versus urbanized communities, and all of us, including yourself, Denise, we come from somewhere. Yeah. We come from somewhere, right? I grew up, yes, part of my life in Soweto, but that is because my parents do their jobs and all that. They had a house in Soweto in Meadowlands, but they always built the house there by the rurals. It's Christmas time, we're all going to go home at some point. But COGTA still does not take a center stage. It's not getting the glory, or maybe it's not well affirmed as a department of government to say most of us come from somewhere and they understand traditional issues and cultural issues. We've got to go back to the drawing boards, Dr. Q. We've got to, because our culture it's not gelling with where we are with the Constitution. The Constitution gels with urbanized communities. You can tell Dr. Q in a house in Sandton, he's got his PhD and professorship, and say, honey, you gotta cook today. I'm not cooking for the kids. No. In the rural communities, there ain't that nonsense like that. And we're not forced to do it, but we know it's my duty when I get home. We go to, Baba, they need, pokoko, they need thing, whatever the situation. So have we adapted? Are we free in this country? Are African people, have they found their own freedom? Because for you to find your own freedom, it's not only about being able to vote, it's also about you practicing your own cultural and traditional practices. You've got to practice that. You fought for it. Come on. Can we entrench it? Can we make sure that we go back to the drawing boards? So the role of a boy and the role of a girl, and I know some people might call me old-fashioned. I'm not old-fashioned. I'm just stating the facts. And the fact of the matter is those things are apparent. You can have your PhDs, Dr. Q. You know, you can't throw a PhD at your parents and your grandparents. You can't do that. Where do we find the balance? And I'm not saying glorify boys, but I'm saying, for me, in the last 30 days, we've managed to make boys feel less valued. That's what we've done in this country. And
30 years, not 30 days.
No, that's what we've done. That's an unintended consequence of democracy. And then we're raising... No, it is unintended. I don't like that personally. And we know this. Educated people like yourself and me, we know this. Yeah, it's about what can we do with it. And we need more civil society to work with a boy child. I think a girl child, we've worked with it and we are highlighting things, but I think we may be unpopular for doing certain things, but I think they need to be done. We need NGOs that deal with boy child and to affirm a boy child. We need to show a boy child his value. We need to remind him. It's not like a boy child doesn't know, funny enough, but we need to remind them, hey, Dr. Q, this is your value. Yeah. Usa. And it's very, you know what? I always say to people, it's very easy to work with a boy child. Very easy. You just need to make them see their value.
Yeah. I guess same as we do with girl children as well. I'm gonna go back to the question that I asked though before you came with that on those specific forms of GBV in rural areas when compared to your urban spaces.
Yeah, Dr. Q, and I'm gonna say again, you probably didn't hear me. In rural communities, it's what do you call it, like a hidden agenda to continue to voice your opinion about GBV. It's there, it's prevalent. And I would dare say it's more prevalent than we can even imagine. You see, in an urbanized community, people go quickly to the police station. In a rural community, if Dennis raped me as a woman, Dr. Q's family might come and like, sorry. We deal with it in a rural setting that way because everybody's related to everybody in the community. You get what I'm saying? But I think the more we encourage such behavior, and we allowing it to be perpetuated. I mean, in this year, I told you about a 13-year-old that was raped by a gardener that has been working for their family for donkey years, and it's a known person, right? And this child grew up, this man knowing this child. He's 36, the child is about 13 years old or so. We know a couple of years ago, an older man raped young boys, not a boy, young boys, right? So I don't know where it ended up, but it's time that we face and confront these things. If you ask people of my age group, people that were born in 1965, I dare you, call them. They will tell you we knew about groping and fondling by adults on children. The adults were adults and they had a standing in a community. These things are known in my community. These things are known, but it's because of fear of authority, fear of speaking up. I'm speaking up now. Some people might be happy. Some people might be saying, oh, she's onto something. We gotta shut her down. A couple of weeks ago, the royal family was on radio. And they were talking about royal issues, blah, blah, blah. We've got a lot of challenges in my community, by the way, like any other community. Someone called and said, even within the structures of authority within Lekotla, which is a tribal authority, not tribal council, it's an old structure of clans and stuff like that, and clan heads. Someone called the radio station and said, listen, some of those leaders, we know that they're rapists. So, I mean, I was like, huh? So this is deep, you know? So people know these things, but they don't come forth with it because there are repercussions in opening your big mouth, Dr. Q. But I think little by little, talking like between the two of us about these sort of things, and for the government of the Northwest to start having these sessions. And I think the government of the Northwest is a provincial government, but there's also local authority. Local authority as a municipality, whether it's Madibeng in Brest or Rustenburg, they need to take this thing seriously because if we do not curb it, because local municipalities know about tribal innuendos and tribal issues, they need to maybe take a step forward and encourage people to continue to talk and do something about it. Even in the schools, some people will tell you, even school teachers and stuff like that. But you see, very enclosed community, let's deal with it with this clan and that clan and this clan and Dr. Q and the Segakwengs, so that, you know, we don't get embarrassed. It's actually an embarrassing situation to know that I was raped. So
I actually wanted to ask, and you just alluded to it now. I wanted to ask what role traditional leaders and community elders play in perpetuating or addressing GBV in rural areas, especially within the areas where you guys work. What have you observed on this?
I wish I could say I observed anything. And I did say upfront, the community members paid for taxis to go to the magistrate court.
Yeah.
I did not see leadership and even articulating the scourge of this, because it's a scourge. The social degradation, especially around GBV, is big in the rural community. But unless we have leaders that we can also possibly educate and empower around this issue to say this issue is a problem, we're going nowhere. We're going to take long. We're going to get somewhere, but we're going to take long. But we need leadership to take it on head on, to confront it. But who's to tell why they're not necessarily entertaining this? In terms of the tribal authority, the tribal council, I've yet to see, look, there's some members in the community who are adults who are saying, this has got to stop. And I take my hat off for men that come to the party and say, we've got to stop this. I mean, in my foundation, I actually blasted our own members and I said, it's amazing that we talk about so many things, but when it comes to this particular issue, I'm not hearing the intellectual discussions and debates around this thing. And, you know, I think the guys know me very well, and I was not chastising them. I was saying, let's have a mouth. Let's say something, because we have one of our, this organization that I'm chairing is one of the organizations that have a lot more professionals concentrated in them. And I think them talking will make a difference. We still need tribal council, traditional council, and tribal authority to talk more, because we can't let this thing slide, because it may look like one or two, but if you take 19 villages that belong to Bakuna Mokopa, you're probably talking about 19 or so victims per year or per 6 months or whatever. Occasionally we have this and it's a problem. And I've never at any given time, even the time that an adult male raped young boys, I never saw authority, people in authority and leadership going to court and having placards. I cried tears when I did not see a lot of men having placards at court in November, because this case is ongoing, it's sub judice. And this 36-year-old has been remanded in court. But if you look at the video clips, it's mostly females. I'm not saying males did not go, but the majority was females. And I think unless men are affirmed to know that you don't have to take responsibility for another man that have raped, you just have to denounce it and say he was wrong. And I think this bro mentality of saying, I'm going to say nothing, bro, it's not okay. In as much as I defend a boy child, I'm here to say men need to step up and say it is wrong. Even if the young man has hung himself, he was wrong for taking somebody else's life. He's still very wrong for not facing the consequences and killing him. He took an easy route out. That can't be a happy medium to say at least he killed himself. No, he did not teach anybody anything. If anything, you're encouraging other people to say when you're in trouble, you can kill yourself.
Can you pause there, please?
Yeah.
On that young man that you are making reference to, Lawrence, I was reading comments on social media, and you've got one group that says he was wrong. He took the easy way out. I actually felt like that when I saw what he had done. But I must confess, I was actually having a conversation with my sister, and we both said this last night, that he won't last 24 hours. He's going to kill himself. It was quite evident that he was going to do that. But then you get another group that says, I think I screen grabbed some of the comments, actually. I want to read some of them to you. I'm not sure. I hope I did. But no, I didn't. But a lot of people were saying the problem here is women, and now making reference to this lady that was murdered, they use men, and they use men ngendlela ebhedayo, and that is why we see such things happening. So the guy in the video claims that he did everything for this lady, and then she goes and she cheats. I'm not sure whether he said she was cheating or whether they found out that the son is not actually his. I think it was both those. So, what do you make of those two lines of thinking from society?
That you're asking, and I heard him on a video clip saying, I had forgiven her. She had given birth to somebody else's child. I accepted the child and I moved on. So for me, everything centered. I went to the money issue for me. And I was like, so, child, this girl did not love you at all. This girl used you. So I'm not going to deal with a girl child. I'm going to deal with a boy child. At what point do we get to do we affirm you to say, Mawubona intombazana, it's imali all the time? At what point do you cut that thing and say, so Zemin, I love myself too much. Show me the love, I'll show you the love. At what point? Why are men reducing themselves to the value of money? Why must you buy, or why must you buy a girl? So that was not love. He was buying the love of this girl. And this girl knew what she was doing. I'm not here to judge, right? He will meet his maker. I knew once evela ku-Facebook ukuthi lo mfana uzozibulala. I knew that. I knew, just like you say, you and your sister. I knew it. I knew this boy is going to kill himself because what do you live for? Because he has lived for making somebody else happy. We're happy and agwayen. We're happy and agwayen. Esumuntu. We're happy. Dr. Q. Did he love himself? Or did he love that woman more than, how on earth can you take, I mean, even if I was like, I don't know heart that he has. Bless his beautiful heart and may his soul rest in peace. But he knew this woman had a child with somebody else when they were in a relationship.
Well, he's forgiving. Maybe he loved her. Maybe that's a sign that he loved her.
No, he was obsessed with that woman. There's obsession and there's love. He was obsessed. And it's a deadly obsession that he had with this woman. You must look at men that kill women half the time in relationships. Even if you go in videos, you go to YouTube, it's obsession. You're obsessing over this person. Even when the person says hello to another man, you are so obsessive. And then you become jealous. That's obsession. Can you distinguish between the two? I don't know if our men can do that. I don't. I can't judge. But I don't see this love. I don't think he was loving this girl. He was obsessed. He didn't want anybody next to this girl. This girl showed him before that I'm not into you. She had a child with somebody else, for goodness sake, for crying out loud. It's very rare actually. And you African and I'm African, it's very rare that you hear a man is forgiving a woman having a child outside of their own relationship.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard that? So tell me if this was love.
Haven't. I actually haven't.
I'm glad you're saying that. Dr. Q, I'm glad. So you see I don't know how to call it. It's not normal. When you look at the bigger scheme of things, I'm African and I know of my African brothers. It's very rare that you hear this nonsense. So for me, then it went to obsession, money, no love. He did not get the cues. He did not get the clues. Can we teach? I don't know if you can teach a black African child for cues and clues. And I'm not saying people mustn't be forgiving, but you show me your colors now, you'll never be anybody else but Dr. Q. You know what I'm saying? There was going to be another child who came from another man at some point. There was. We have a saying in Setswana that says, is it a leopard never loses his spot. We do. If I love you, I'll have your children. I will not bring a child outside.
So what I've been hearing is we need to correct the boy child. We need to correct the boy child. A man. And I get why you are saying that. But where are women in the discourse when we talk about gender-based violence? Where are women? It can't be that it is only men that perpetuate violence. Is GBV only when a man inflicts pain on a woman and a child? What if it is a woman that inflicts pain on me as a guy? Is that not gender-based violence? Because oftentimes when you talk about this, we just leave out women as perpetrators and they are always victims.
Yeah, and I think it is because in numbers, men inflict more pain and men are the biggest culprits in terms of GBV. However, men are raping men, hey? Young boys are being raped. So we need to also deal with that aspect. And I told about an example in my village. And that is something that is often left off the mark for some strange reason. We talk about GBV when it comes to men raping women. Young boys are being raped left, right, and center. So we need to deal with, and when I talk about encouraging and working with a boy child, I'm also including those kind of aspects for a boy child to know that rape is a thing for me as a boy child. You follow? Now let's deal with women. No, we're not in big numbers in terms of ukuhlukumeza amadoda, but we're there. There's a lot of females that are doing this and even killing men. I'm not giving them a pass. But hear me out, Dr. Q. Because there's been a lot of programs directed at females and a young girl child taken to school, blah, 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 we completely forgot about the fact that, hey, gender. We haven't worked with this gender. So there's a lot that's happening on the female side. And I'm not saying abahlukumeza amadoda bakhona, but in numbers is the opposite.
And maybe abahlukumezi amadoda much, but we definitely see women inflicting pain on children.
Oh, yes.
I've got two and you know, it's so interesting how it happens. It is usually a mother-daughter kind of thing, or aunt niece kind of violence. There's two ladies that I know. I used to go to school with them. To this day, they don't want to see, one doesn't want to see the mother, the other doesn't want to see the aunt, because they were the most abusive people that they've ever encountered. Yet, when we talk about GBV, we always focus on men, and we forget Uguti, much as women don't inflict pain that much on their partners or male counterparts, but they do inflict pain on young children.
I think we have to rise to that occasion, but it's because it's not necessarily popularized. I mean, if you remember, there was a case of a woman who was a domestic worker and a child was found in a suitcase.
I have it,
yeah. And
yes.
And I think it's because those kind of cases are in the rare, and I'm not saying rare in the sense that we can give them a pass, but I think we need to begin to have a conversation around abuse as genderless. I'm not sure when we get to that point of talking about abuse as genderless, but we need to get to abuse J as genderless.
Thank
you follow what I'm saying? But I think for this country, it's going to take a lot out of us to do that. I don't think, and I think often we tend to rely on government to come up with that. You know, the Ministry of Women, Children, and Disability. I don't like the fact that it's a woman and children. I don't like the fact that it's women, because abuse is abuse, whether it's female or male. Abuse is genderless. But I think we're too young in the game to get to that point, but we should get to that. And I think we will get to that. And I think we need more and more NGOs to come to the party and say, hey, government, abuse is genderless.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to get there.
I don't know how this part of the podcast can get to policymakers, but I really wish it could land in the right ears, because abuse, as you say, it's not about gender. I don't think we need to attach gender. The moment we do that, I feel we already give a certain perception that it is a particular gender that actually drives violence, you know? And in this case, it would be men more than women.
Yeah.
When it's not really the case. But
and I think, you know, Dr. Q, to be quite honest with you, we are finding ourselves hitting our heads against the wall. I don't think if I want you to come to my party, I must tell you how ugly you are. So, and I'm using that metaphor because the current discussions on the tables are about men abusing women. I know that they are, but I'm saying it's time that we say men are handsome and give them. I know I'm like kind of making it light, but I'm saying if I want you to buy my product, I need to appeal to you so that you buy my product. So you've got to buy my analogy to come to me. Are you going to buy my analogy if I continue to tell you, yeah, I hate men and I hate men and men are this, men are dogs, men are this, men are, you know what I'm saying? So I've got to start by saying, wow, I appreciate men. I could not even open a window if there was not the men. So I think the narrative need to start changing so that we get our men to buy into helping us with GBV, in total, in its own different formats. We've got to start, and I think we need strategies from a communication perspective and advertisers to start talking about men and uplifting where they are. I think I've never seen our men, especially African. I'm sorry, I'm African. I'm going to always talk about African men. I don't think in this century, I don't think I've ever seen our men feeling so low about themselves and feeling so worthless. We have devalued our men. We didn't have to. We were trying to correct certain things. Historically, we come from a paternalistic society, but we went on the extreme by pointing the wrong into men. Men, you. I wish there was a balance somewhere where we could have still used our Afrocentric mentality and cultures, but we still not get to a point where we devalued our men. I love our African men, but I feel for them. I think to make it worse or to be me, I'm going to say we've actually castrated our men, our African men. Yeah. They feel so devalued, and it's a shame. And I think we need to go back to social ills like even the drugs of this world. You've got to have money to go date a woman. We're 59, we were dated with no money. Goodness me, we went to the river. So I'm saying, Dr. Q, I'm sorry. I have to say we've got to affirm and we've got to go back and assure our boy child and build a different society. If we do that, our women are already there. They're going to be picked up from there. But these are the people that when we found democracy, we said, yeah, we've been paternalistic. Yeah, we haven't looked after our women. Yeah, and it's 30 years. We've just suppressed men.
You just used the term affirm and man in one statement. Yesterday, I was having dinner with a friend, a male friend, and we were watching this other TV program, Pop a Balloon or something, and there were guys who were looking for a partner, and then this lady, yeah, had to pop balloons. You will watch the game on YouTube. But when they were questioned, one of the guys was asked why he's interested in this girl. No. The girl asked what he likes, what is his love language, and the guy said words of affirmation and. And then the response from my friend who was sitting across me was, "Hey, bro, words of affirmation one, Lisa. Men don't want words of affirmation. This is why we've got a weak society now, because men want these words of affirmations. Imagine being told all the time, Umuhle, I love you, and he continued. I'm reminded of those words, and I'm wondering, wouldn't that contribute to a weaker society? Because, in all honesty, you've been saying we come from a paternalistic background, but we acknowledge, and this is something we take pride in, especially in rural spaces, that we are very much patriarchal, even though we don't voice it out, and it goes with certain habits and beliefs. Umuntu wesilisa akatshela ukuthi ngiyakuthanda umuhle all the time. A boy child awulokhu uyidlalisa in a particular way or say certain things kuyena as you would with a girl child, for instance.
Yeah, and I think we need to go back and be able to say to a boy child, you are enough. You don't have to say you're handsome. You are enough. You are enough. You don't need to go and break a bank for a girl. What would you rather have? Because I'm saying culture is adaptable. It's dynamic. Culture moves on. We are not in the 1800s, Dr. Q. Sikhulile siyayibona lento amadoda bayazibulala ngenxa yokuthi abanamali. Should we rather stay there and see more and more? We need our girls. I need my daughter to be married. So where am I going to get all these boys when they're killing themselves? Ngenxa yemali? Can we move on? Culture is dynamic. It's time that we talk about things that matter. It matters to tell a man that you are enough. You are enough. You are enough.
Okay,
You
maybe
don't have to go and buy ukulala nomuntu. You know, we are actually, I'm sorry. Therefore, we are raising professional prostitutes.
What are professional prostitutes? I was about to say maybe at some point we need to unpack what being enough means, but I'm now more interested on professional prostitutes.
No, I mean, if wena ukuthanda intombazana means you must give her money all the time and buy her creams and buy her things. That's a very beautiful line of prostitution. So where are you your money?
Yeah.
What comes first? Is
culture.
the money to buy the girl, or we can go out here and there? To be honest with you, yes, it's nice, but imali, what must I do? Go to the next person and say, at least let daughter in imali. You know, there's a program on TV, and I used to laugh at it, and I don't always date my family or all that. And a girl that has not even a car stand up and says, ngifuna umuntu onemoto osebenzayo and you and you look at what she has. Why do you funa that person? Why can't you have your own moto? I'm sorry. Like, is this your father that you're going to date? Your father must take you to a mall. Really? You are so demanding. He must be tall, anamazinyo amahle, abe nemoto, abe tall. Like, go build your own person. Like, this is why we put in pressures in people. If you're going to say, and if I was a boy on that age, my family, I always say, I don't know why this boy did not turn back. These people are of the same age. They probably went to different high schools, but at the same level.
Yeah.
Njani, Dr. Q. Njani.
It's that thing. It's that thing that you're saying. Indoda must provide, right?
I'm saying, can we change the narrative? The economy does not allow for indoda my savings they provide there. Can we change that? Because culture is dynamic. When do we get to that point? Because we have women in top positions, but a man feels so low next to the person because the woman is making the man feel like, yeah, indoda might provide. Also, provide because now
yeah.
Rise up. Can we just go to the culture is dynamic? I can't stop saying that. When are you going to realize as African people, dude, the economy is bad? Why do you think Zimbabweans are here? Their economy is bad, they're here. You know what I'm saying? It's an economic issue more than anything else. If we all had opportunities of getting jobs, even now, even if our economy was good, but the fact of the matter is with employment equity, the way it's implemented is such that eventually you're going to have women being more bosses. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying at what point do we level the playing field and say, okay, when we're implementing it, do we realize that this boy is also going to be obstinate if they report into a girl? I had boys reporting to me at some point in corporate. Some men don't appreciate that. And I'm not saying make it right, but in terms of implementing it, can we realize this dynamic of culture? And unfortunately, we the people that are implementing it, why are we educated? Why are we educated? Why can't we read? Why can't we see these things for what they are? Or are you just happy to get a job and be in a CEO at whatever, I don't know, whatever big corporation in South Africa? Did you forget that you're African as a CEO or a COO? Did you? What do you look like? When white people are looking at you, do they see a white man? They see a black child. So remember your culture. Don't lose your dynamic of being an African person in South Africa, in a corporate. You're a CEO. That's where it ends. Why emakhaya in Nambiti? Babona as ubud Teniso. They don't see a Dr. Teniso. They don't care ekhaya.
Yeah.
So bring that into corporate for yourself. This is why, and I know I'm digressing, this is why our African brothers and sisters, we fail. We failed dismally to make sure that we even advantage our Black younger brothers into higher levels in corporate. It is because we bolted out of Africa, remembering that we are African, we so Eurocentric that we even forget the basic issues that, you're African, just because I speak English does not mean that I forgot my roots and I forgot what the whole agenda is. The agenda has been for us to get into corporate, right, Dr. Q? Are we? But you'll find the Black CEO with everything under him looking differently.
Yeah.
So I know I digress, but I'm saying we've got to go back to the fact that culture is dynamic. It needs to change. We need to adapt. We can't put pressure on a male child. We can't. And even you yourself as a man, stop putting pressure on yourself. I know it's a difficult task, right? But I'm telling you, if you look around, you'll find girls that come from family backgrounds where they're well equipped with self-actualization. They know that I don't need a boy to take me for a pizza. Like if you're gonna say to this girl, I'll take you for a pizza, she'll say, okay, we'll go Dutch. They are there. They are there. They are there. They are there.
Show me where to find them so that I make my way.
Well, I will invite you. Come see them, because I think you guys tend to fish in wrong rivers.
Interesting you would say that. Esizulwini, we've got a saying ethi indu enhle igawulwa ezizweni. Do you know what that means?
No.
Indu enhle igawulwa ezizweni, meaning that you will find your absolute perfect partner elsewhere, outside your community, far away from home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So show me. I'm more than happy to come to the Northwest and start.
You must. We have a similar saying that says something like a gentleman that never visits will never visit outside of his own community will marry his own sister.
Oh, shucks. Okay. I almost said something out of line.
That's fine.
Let me reserve my comment there.
It's okay.
I do have one last question though.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for all the contributions. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
If you, in an ideal world, if you were given an opportunity to put together various stakeholders, policymakers, and whoever, in one room to fight GBV, who would you have and why?
It's a tough call. But there's a lot of NGOs that I would bring on board, civil society people, because they know what's happening on the ground. Whether they're coming from the male sort of line or female sort of line, I would bring, those would be my key people on the table. I don't think, and I would bring the justice system in that room. I think it's time that the justice system and the security cluster, which is the police, right? For me, the top priority would be civil society because they live amongst these communities. They've got to be there. The next line in priority is the justice system, right? And then the security cluster, because if the justice system works such that they can convict and make sure that they deter, then the police will know that we can't even lose a docket. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure, but I think automatically, because the government are the custodians in certain departments, like when it comes to rural communities, I would like COCTA to be there. But this Ministry of Women and Children and Disabilities, I think it needs to change. I don't know what it can be called, because for me, abuse is abuse. And there's disability in Social Development Department, by the way. And then there's Ministry of Women, Children and Disability. How much emphasis can you put on that? We just need to do what is right by the disabled people or people with disabilities. We need to do right with abuse, without any gender. So those are the people that I would put on the table for me to come up with a policy of some sort. I think, I'm not sure whether the Public Administration Justice Act is sufficient in terms of taking people to task who are public administrators like police when you go in and report rape or you go and report abuse. But I think, this act, it's a very valuable act, and it's a piece of act that we don't actually talk a lot more about it. And until you hold a person responsible through an act, then they don't have a cover. You go to a policeman called Segakweng. You go and put a claim against that person in relation to Public Administration Justice Act. You isolate the person, and I think we can get there. I'm not sure, I may sound naive, people might disagree with me, Dr. Q, but I think we have enough tools in this country to deal with this scourge. We're not using them effectively. And I think we're not using it effectively because justice is expensive again in this country. Justice is expensive. An ordinary rural child cannot access the justice system properly because it is expensive. So what does it tell you? It's a class issue when it comes to cases, how they are dealt with, because you don't have the resources to actually deal with certain cases of violence against different genders, whether it is a boy child or a girl child. I'm not sure how or what is the next move. I still have to try and figure it out within our organization to say, how do we access justice in this country cheaply? Because justice is so expensive. There's a lot of human rights abuses in rural communities. We haven't scratched it. We haven't scratched the surface yet. There's a lot. And people decide, anginamali, to deal with this. There's a lot.
Can you give me examples? I know we are concluding, but can you give me a few examples of that, please?
Listen, there's a reason why we got our freedom as African people. And if you go back to the speech of Nelson Mandela, he said, never and never again, didn't he? Never and never. Go to that speech and listen to it. That translated into the constitution that nobody will go hungry as an African child. And we will never go through racism, etc., etc. Is it done up?
No, we are still experiencing those.
Is that not human violence? I mean, you're not violating other humans by leaving them poor in this country? What happened to never and never again? Is there no racism? You wake up and then you hear stories of racism in farmlands and wherever. Is that not a human rights issue? So what is Human Rights Commission doing? Go back to never and never again and listen to the whole story. Never and never and never again. I can remember those words when he stood up in that podium and became a president, and he said, never and never and never again, because we knew where we're coming from. 30 years down the line. Are you telling me, Dr. Q, that we good? All African children go to bed with their stomach full in South Africa?
Well, unfortunately, I'm in that space, and I can even give you the figures of the number of people that go to bed hungry.
Is that not violence against human rights? It's not violence against our rights as humans in this country. That's my point. It's human rights abuse. It is. We can't. We said never and never again. We said it. We agreed with him. We voted for him. And we agreed that never ngeke, because I'm ngeke. But you wake up and you hear so many human rights abuses. We hear them. And we minimize them to whatever level. But for me, it's a human rights abuse to still see a Black person not having water in their yard. It's abuse. It's a human right abuse. It is. Water is a human right. We said it in the Constitution. Water is a human right. Dr. Q, go to my village, people don't have water. Go to my village, people don't. And that's not the only village. That's a human right abuse.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I went to see my grandparents this past weekend. It is bad. It is bad. Rivers are dry, there's no water. Waterkans are no longer passing. We don't know what to make of the situation. We're relying on rainwater now. And now the talks are around getting boreholes. You know, if you want them to live longer, um, and if you want to save them from this, I'm gonna refer to it as a pandemic, we need to start acting because government is certainly has certainly decided to take themselves out of the equation.
But
But
my point remains, Dr. Q, that's a human right issue.
of course,
Water is a human right. We are abused daily in rural communities because of lack of water. And you can't put it in neatly bows and beautiful. That's a human right issue. That's what I'm talking about in rural communities. We are abused.
most certainly, I agree with you there. Mapem Segakweng, I'm gonna take this opportunity and thank you very, very much for giving me your time. It's 21:46 now. I know you should be preparing for bed or you should be asleep by now, but
I sleep very late. I'm so happy I spoke to you, Dr. Q. So
no, thank
happy
you so
you
much.
ask such intelligent and nice, thought-provoking questions. I really have to take my hat off for you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I truly
You
appreciate that. And
challenged me.
I hope we are going to see you again on Beyond the Headlines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give me a call wherever you can. Thank you and all the best, eh?
Thank you so much.
Ciao.
You have yourself a
Take
good
care.
night.
You do the
Goodbye.
same. Ciao. Bye.